Thanks, Lena. We're diving into stories today because we know the stories that people hear and they tell themselves are at the core of how we make decisions and understand the world around us. And it's not the data that will open or change someone's mind, but the story we tell that makes sense of that information. And it's not just a nice label for making cute, fun content. Like, storytelling is not a theoretical question. It's a real and tested phenomenon that we've baked into the Begins with Home theory of change and our strategic approach. And right now, the story that most people are hearing about housing justice is negative, and we need to change that because we know it won't work for us. Our 2023 Shift the Narrative annual tracking poll showed a strong correlation between an individual hearing positive information about housing with feeling hopeful and taking action in their community and supporting the large-scale regional policies you want to see. So in other words, if we can help more people feel more hopeful, they are more likely to support meaningful structural change we need, whether that's a regional bond or the many other campaigns moving housing justice forward across the Bay. And that's the storytelling opportunity in front of us, and we're excited to get to work with you in bringing that story of hope to life. So through today's session, I'll be diving deeper into the storytelling with you all. And in just a minute, I'll pass it to my colleague and NPH's lead narrative strategist, Corey Fisher, to take us through an overview of the Begins with Home's current storytelling direction. And then we'll have a solid 20 minutes or so of small group discussion time to really hear from you all about what stories you want to tell with us and how we can amplify them together. And you'll definitely want to stick around after the discussion as well, because we'll be announcing our first look at our new storytelling production program developed in partnership with All Home that you can apply to join and help us create even more stories of hope and action for housing justice with this network. And then we'll wrap with some final ways to engage with us right now and what's coming ahead for Affordable Housing Month in May. So get comfy, get ready to collaborate, and keep an eye in the chat box because we'll be dropping lots of helpful links along the way too. So with that, the floor is yours, Corey.
Thanks, Madison. Is everyone comfy? I want to make sure everyone's comfy. Very key.
I'm comfy.
Okay, good. I am too. So, as Madison said, we change hearts and minds through stories and human connection, not just facts and data. So how do we do that? We developed the following checklist of essentials for storytelling, both to inform our own storytelling and also for all of us, for you to keep in mind as you create and refine your own campaign messaging, stories, and content. Let's go to the next slide. So we boiled down the whole narrative strategy of the Begins with Home campaign into this checklist. It's a cheat sheet for telling strong, powerful stories that build support for housing justice across our audiences, across our region. You can refer to this checklist no matter what you're drafting or working on. You can apply these to any piece of communications. So let's talk about what they are for a second. The first one, go back, let's stay here. First one is about calling everyone in with our shared values. We both lead and close any message with inclusive values-based language, and we name how all of us are in this together, no matter our race, class, or housing status. That's key for making sure that everyone can see themselves as part of the story we're telling, and that they have a role in working for solutions and in making that story more possible for more people. We want to emphasize people over policies. We'll go more into that one in a second. We want to uplift the voices of those most impacted by housing issues by centering lived experience and the solutions coming from impacted communities. And we want to show how the status quo is impacting some folks and holding everyone back. We want to make solutions visible. We'll come back to that one in a sec. We want to be optimistic and hopeful about the future. We're also going to dive more into that one, maybe not a surprise given our campaign's themes. We want to connect housing justice to other social justice movements, past and present. We want to remind our audiences that we've won big, hard things by working together before. And we want to call on the pride of the history of the Bay Area in activism and in social justice movements. We also want to evoke the diversity of the Bay Area and universal feelings of home. We know that there's no one version, one image of the Bay Area. There's no one version, one image of what houses look like. We can celebrate the diversity of our communities, of our homes, and call on the universal, powerful feelings of being at home that all of us share. And we want to focus on activating allies instead of opposition voices. We don't need to cater to NIMBY voices. They have a louder presence than they do in numbers. And we want to make the people who we want to be part of our movement, the hero of the story. So you can check, there's a link in the chat for the whole narrative playbook, and there's more details about these. But let's dive into just a few for today. So first, that emphasizing people over policies. We refer to this all the time. And if you've been part of Shift the Bay trainings over the last few years, you've heard us say this before. It's quoting Anat Shinker-Osorio, to sell the brownie and not the recipe for the brownie, not the powder mix that comes in the box, but the picture of the brownie that's on the front of the box. We do that by telling stories about people's aspirations and how their lives are impacted by housing solutions. People's lives, they are impacted by the policies that we work on, but those aren't the way that we help connect people to what our solutions are. So we want to stay away from process stories about the policies that we're working on. We also want to make solutions visible, right? We do that by highlighting specific ways that people's lives have been made better and specific actions that people can take to increase their impact. And then just one note here, right? When we tell stories of people's individuals' experiences, it can sometimes unintentionally reinforce sort of a by the bootstraps narrative. We want to also keep the focus on systems and structural change, using individual stories to illustrate those systems and how we can spread those solutions more widely. And of course, another note that we never want to pit solutions against each other. That's not in our long-term interest. Lastly, we want to be optimistic and hopeful about the future. It's important to together take a breath and cut any talk of doom and gloom. Doesn't mean we aren't real about the problems that we face. Doesn't mean we don't express outrage when outrage is appropriate. But we want to avoid crisis language, and we want to share reasons for hope. And part of that is, when things are dire and making people feel fearful or hopeless, it doesn't help us. Those are not mindsets that when people are in, that they're going to support transformative solutions, that they're going to take action, that they're going to believe that things can be better. One of our colleagues says we want to throw a party that people want to come to, and that's exactly right for this space that we're in together, and in building our movement together. So let's go to taking a look at some examples. How do we do this? We want to share some of the stories that we've been making for Begins with Home social media channels as examples. This first one, you might remember when for a week or 2 weeks, the biggest story in the Bay Area was food influencer Keith Lee cutting short his food tour of the Bay Area, and tons of media stories running the usual doom and gloom pieces. So we wanted to take that opportunity to try to flip the script and use that moment to lift up solutions and wins instead. And I think we can click through this a little bit to give you a sense. We said all right, Keith Lee cut his tour short, but if he came back, here's what we would show him on the tour. And we use that to lift up some examples of our work. And maybe the animation didn't work. It's very possible.
Yeah,
we can
it's
go to
not
the next slide.
carousels working.
Oh, well.
Maybe we can drop a link to this post in the chat from Instagram.
Great. The next example we wanted to show, let me see. Oh, here we go. As you can see, these examples we put in. This was really about making solutions, some solutions visible, some recent wins visible that most folks might not have heard about. Funding for HomeKey, new affordable homes coming, and a recent win in the legislature last year with SB4. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Just an example, so we've talked a little bit about activating allies, and one way to do that is to help show supporters that there are other people like them in their neighborhoods and across the Bay. Some people don't hear those voices all the time. you might be shocked, on social media, in the media, and community spaces. And it can be really powerful to know that you're not alone. So we just took some captions we've been getting on some of our posts and put that back out into the world. And I know it made my day to see this, right? Fighting to stay in the Bay. We won't give up. I love the Bay so much. I don't ever want to leave. I love this. I think there's one more. Yeah. Awesome. This next example is from our TikTok work. And big shout out to Madison's work here, translating our narrative strategy to work within the unique world and voice and algorithm of TikTok. That's maybe a future briefing for us. This was a good news article. It was about how someone's life was transformed with affordable housing and supportive services. We wanted to bring this article to life. So one of our TikTok ambassadors, campaign partners, Jeff from Hamilton Families, shared a summary of this woman's story. And let's see if the slides are in our favor, and we'll play it for us.
Listen to this mom's story featured in the San Francisco Chronicle. 4 years ago, Leticia was out of options. She was fighting a years-long battle with substance use and mental health challenges. Without an effective support system, she became unhoused and considered ending her own life. But access to supportive services and affordable housing changed everything. Leticia and her 2-year-old son are among the first tenants to move into City Gardens, a new 200-unit supportive housing development in the Soma neighborhood of San Francisco. Not only does she have access at a price she can afford, but she has in-house access to case management and other supportive services that help keep a roof over her and her son's head for the long haul. Why is this important? Leticia's story highlights what we can do when we work together to ensure families have access to the services they need and that all families have a safe, stable place to live. We know what works. That's how someone goes from living on the streets to accessing the safe, stable housing they need to get back on their feet.
Haven't clicked through, so I don't know if
Listen to this mom's
in the room blushing somewhere. Great job. We wanted to be really intentional in how we did that, how we shared that story, right? Framing it within our systems, showing how systems change can benefit more people, and really just the simple act of, there was a good story in the Chronicle's limited readership. Let's make sure we share that story somewhere else to reach more of our audience. So we want to share this little view on the next slide of our calendar, so you can see where we are in the campaign. We've been building the infrastructure, channels, and strategy of the campaign since we launched last October. Right now, we're working to reach and activate our Mobilize audience. These are folks across the Bay Area who hold strong housing justice values but aren't yet taking action. And next, we're moving into persuasion audience reach, delivering stories of solutions and collective action to inspire that audience to feel that sense of courageous hope. These are folks who are softer on support for housing justice values, and we know that hearing these stories can make a big difference for their perceptions. We'll engage those audiences that we built up and reached in the September-October election period, and then work to make meaning after the election that reinforces our longer-term narrative change goals. And we thought that it would be great to share just a preview of the editorial calendar that we're using to map out the monthly themes and the content that is in our pipeline. These are video stories, mostly video stories that we're working on with our campaign partners. And we're hoping these themes and stories might spark ideas for you. So April's theme, we're really ramping up to Affordable Housing Month in May with the theme of solidarity for housing justice, showing maybe unexpected messengers, talking about housing justice, stories that show the diversity of faces of support from different backgrounds, different housing statuses, showing faith leaders uniting together for housing justice. Then May our focus is obviously it's Affordable Housing Month, and our theme is Our Future Begins with Home. We can go to the next slide. There we go. Bringing that to life with stories about people using their collective power, reminding people what their collective power is to make a difference, and making solutions visible. Stories we're working on include a movement building video, stories of affordable housing residents, how their lives have been changed, permanent supportive housing residents, how their lives have been changed. In June, continuing to build on some of those same themes with the month theme of belonging begins with home for LGBTQ plus Pride Month. Stories that are in our pipeline there, preservation story to capture that aspect of our movement's work, and maybe a piece about some small landlords who house homeless families. So if any of those monthly themes or content ideas sparked anything for you, if you're working on something similar, we'd love to hear from you. Well, we'll maybe be able to come back to some questions in our discussion section there. So this is sort of the last piece before we move into some group conversation. Is we wanted to share the storytelling themes. These really pair and connect from the essentials checklist that we reviewed earlier. But we use these themes. Every time we're setting out to produce a story, seek a story, we're looking back to these central storytelling themes that we've identified. And again, we know that structural problems need structural change. We want to use individual stories. We want to uplift lived experience that illustrates those systems so that people can see how they can be changed. And we want to reveal the connections of history and historic injustice to today's issues. When we make solutions visible, we want to show concrete examples of successful programs and policies of all kinds. And we want to show those impacts on real people's lives, with the real people making those programs work. In terms of collective power, we really want to lift up everyday folks, finding out how they can become involved in the housing justice movement, taking action, organizing, making a difference in their community, and what it looks like when people come together across lines of difference to work together for housing justice. In terms of feelings of home, connects to what we were saying earlier, right? There's all kinds of different homes and houses. Our point isn't to point to a single one, but it is to really help people connect to the powerful feelings of home. And we can do that by grounding our work in those strong feelings of home and family, and stories that illustrate that. Making the impossible possible. This is really about reminding people that the systems we have, the status quo they see, the Bay Area as it is not what it needs to be, and that we have the power to change it together. And when we use unexpected messengers and show a sense of solidarity, it helps people see how that hope and vision for the future can come to life. So last reminder that this isn't theoretical, right? And this isn't just to help ourselves feel better. Although I think if we do that, that's also not a bad side effect. The storytelling that we do, if we all move together in parallel from wherever we're working, can really break through the noise and reach more people across the Bay Area. And we believe that the people who hear our positive stories, these themes, and communications and stories using the checklist, that they're going to be more likely to support the structural investments and change that we need. So we are really excited about what we're building with Begins with Home, but we can't possibly tell all the good stories that are out there. And that's where our work together really comes in. So we want to hear from you. We want to make space to learn from each other. We're going to move into small groups so we can talk about the storytelling that we're each doing, want to be doing, could be doing together this year. And I will just make a quick pitch that I know. I mean, I have never personally done this. I've gone to the breakout section of a webinar and maybe still been eating or not been ready to come off mute and maybe left at that point. None of us, I'm sure, have ever done such a thing, but I want to encourage you to stick around, come off mute, have this conversation, and a reminder that after our group conversations, we're going to announce this new project of Begins with Home to help more of our organizations do powerful storytelling this year. So you're hearing it here first. We're going to go into some breakout rooms with these questions. Just a chance to introduce yourselves. Then share examples of stories that seed hope for housing justice that you've recently shared, seen, or heard. Stories of hope, progress, solutions, success that you want to see out in the world. What messages and stories do you want to amplify and support? Where and how? And then what role begins with home play in telling those stories and reaching potential supporters. So with that, I believe we are ready to shift into our small groups. And we'll be in those, for about 15 minutes or so. See you back here.
Opening those in just one quick moment and look forward to seeing you all there. Corey, you're muted.
Oh, thank you. I forgot that you're automatically muted when you come back. And I was thinking earlier, like, wow, I've really almost successfully made it through this meeting without talking on mute. But I'll have to roll back that little sign I keep at home. It's been 0 days. Okay, we're gonna do some report outs from those spaces. The group was in, we were just getting in a good flow there, and I'm excited to hear from other groups too. So each group facilitator is gonna share a brief report out about a minute or two each on what stories is your group excited to tell, amplify, or see out in the world. And let's start with breakout group 1, which was our hope group. I love that each room had a little theme. So let's hear from our hope room. Alina, to you.
Hi, thanks. Thank you so much to my group. We talked about giving really visual examples of what it looks like to have the benefits of affordable housing connected to other elements. And I think an important distinction here was around how we often we say affordable housing creates other fabulous positive outcomes, or we have data to show it, but we don't really show what it looks like a story of a school whose students were performing at a level, and then with more housing stability, how that transformed their experience in the schools, something like that. Also in that same sort of visual storytelling, really using cities that have had success by being pro-housing, and I'm paraphrasing here, but just they've made a lot of changes and showing what it looks like now for folks in the community. We also had a couple of examples about stories that are connecting the outcomes to the policies passed. A lot of policies get passed over the past few years, what change is that actually creating in our communities? And showing unlikely partnerships, like when Habitat San Francisco got a huge land donation from PG and Novato, really uplifting, if you put aside the cynical side, why corporate partners would be wanting to do work like that. And then the last example, sorry, I'm just looking at my rough notes here. The housing portals that exist around the Bay Area, it seems like a really cool story that we could be exploring about how the connections are being made, not the data itself, not the technology, but what it looks like when people get connected with resources, with properties, and how that's changing their lives.
A powerful set of stories to bring to life from our hope room. We're going to go to our progress room, room 2, and hear from Alice.
That's me. Thank you, group 2, for a great conversation. At a high level, I would say some key themes that emerged were the importance of kind of personal storytelling, especially the stories of people with lived experience, and kind of showing the face behind the issue on the one hand, but then on the other hand, kind of making sure that we also touch on the broader systemic issues at play. Someone in the group made the point that sometimes we can focus on an individual's situation and then kind of stop the story too soon without connecting the dots to the larger picture of what's going on. So just always being mindful of expanding that lens. And then another group member made the point about really how they would love to see stories that connect the reason, why behind doing what we're doing. So why, for example, wraparound services are so important, helping people who might be newer to the housing justice space or maybe less familiar with affordable housing, see that it's not just as simple as filling up apartments, but there are a lot of concurrent things that need to happen. So really driving home that why point. Yeah, that's it at a very high level. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alice. Room 3, solutions. Over to you, Madison.
That was my group. Two big ideas coming from this conversation. One is just getting some more senior representation in our storytelling, which I loved, and we need more of, just folks who are on fixed income and the fear that creates, and the silencing that happens because of that. So I want to do more storytelling around the senior experience and what it means for like the families and stability to age in place. And then we also talked about Project Home Key, and we had one example of one in Redwood City where there is so much focus on like maybe 6 clients who are still struggling and on their journey to finding stability. And then like there's the 44 units of people that are thriving and really able to like build their lives from having affordable services from Project Home Key. So it kind of reminded me a little bit of like how much focus there is on like the need versus people who are actually like being served and how many people we are successfully serving, and just like the need to then scale that to match the scale of the problem. So yeah, those are top 2 ones coming from this room.
Thanks, Madison. So true, always harder to get the stories of success to spread as much as the stories of what's not working as well. Over to room 4, action room. Destiny.
Yes. So I will start off with a quick apology. That 20 minutes went by so quickly and we were stuck on one question, but I think that's a good problem to have because we did talk a lot about positive stories. So yeah, so we talked about the just cause eviction ordinance in Antioch. Chris mentioned that it was really beautiful to see a lot of community engagement and to hear renters just be really proud of their city and proud of what's going on there. And then we also talked about a very recent development, an affordable housing development in Moss Beach was just approved after 8 years. So same thing there, lots of community engagement, a lot of people coming out to speak. And then there's also a lot of those apartments set aside for like agricultural workers, people that live and work in that Mid-Coast community, which was really awesome to hear. And then we also talked a bit about a San Jose affordable housing development for seniors, and then also Measure A bond efforts. And yeah, we also talked a bit about what we wanted to see uplifted. So things like, affordable housing production to kind of combat those negative stories of, like tenant landlord disputes, things that we see a lot in the news.
Thanks, Destiny. And I'll be reporting out from room 5, our success room. And we talked about a bunch of different kinds of stories, some of which are being told and some in the category of not being told, but we want to see told. We want to be able to amplify in the work we do. So some of those stories were kind of telling that story of like everyone knows someone who needs affordable housing, trying to help people connect to the wide range of our neighbors and family members who need to be able to afford where they can live, whether that's like a returning college kid or a retiree. I want to see stories of people of one ethnicity advocating for another ethnicity, really bringing to life how we're in this together in the Bay Area. And also the kind of like actually just like asking people like in a Starbucks, in a Walmart, in a store, like how long do you have to commute to get to work? Making that story visible. And then the last category was like where are they now stories, which is a very powerful idea. Shout out to Eden. Finding people 10 to 15 years later. So kids who grew up in affordable housing, where are they now? What's their life like? How did it change their lives? But also the buildings themselves, 10, 15 years later. How did those structures impact their communities in concrete ways. And yeah, folks jump in the chat if I missed anything there, but thank you very much to folks in room 5. I know if, like, I'll just take a second and imagine if your news feed, whatever that feed is on whatever platform you're on, if you're on platforms, imagine if your newsfeed was filled with those kinds of stories. If even if half of what you saw about housing in the Bay Area were those stories for you, for the people we're trying to reach, how different more folks might feel about what's possible to do together. So we're excited to be in collaboration with you all. Hopefully, we kind of, maybe a good subtitle of this webinar could have been like, steal these ideas, like go forth and steal. This is our collective work together, and we'll also share ways to be in touch. If you want to reach out and find more ways to collaborate, I'm going to pass things back to Madison.
Thank you, Corey. Yes, as promised, we have some really exciting opportunities to engage with Begins with Home over the next several months that we're ready to share. So I'm going to first pass it to my colleague, Veronica Marquez. She's the communications manager at All Home, to tell you about one very special one that we've been cooking up. Are you ready to tell us more, Veronica?
Yes, let's do it. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so we've been talking about storytelling a lot today and the importance of it. And like Corey said, selling the brownie and not the recipe. And that's really what this initiative is about. We've been working on it for a while, so I'm super excited that we get to talk about it today. And first, I just want to start off by giving a little bit of background on what exactly the initiative is and how we decided to do it. So if we could go to the next slide. Awesome. So again, a little bit of background. As we've been talking about today, storytelling is key to doing narrative shift work and our work in general, and especially centering the lived experience of people who have experienced housing insecurity, and really highlighting those stories and letting those folks lead the way. But, you know, we know that this can be difficult. There's a lot of considerations, processes that have to be built out, and it can be time-consuming work. And we really wanted to create this initiative to help fill some of those gaps and support organizations in doing this storytelling work. And, you know, in order to be able to do this, we first had to understand what exactly are the needs, like where are folks at right now, and what are some of those, again, gaps that need to be filled. And so we had a really great listening tour where we sat down with both organizations in the Bay Area that are doing housing work, as well as people with lived experience of housing insecurity. And it was a really great learning experience. Again, both what is working for folks, what isn't working, what do they need help with, what are they thinking about? And from there, we created this really great program, which is what we're talking about today, that is essentially a cohort model, which will comprise of intensive workshops that will help folks develop and share video stories of courageous hope and collective action that center Bay Area residents who have experienced housing insecurity. And so the initiative is designed to empower and engage storytellers, strengthen video production skills within the housing justice movement, and build narrative so that people can see, I think I might have, so that people can see and believe that we are building a future where everyone can afford to live and thrive in the Bay Area. And so, yeah, getting into the structure of this a little bit, again, this is going to be a cohort model. So we're looking to bring 4 to 6 different organizations to be a part of this program, and they would receive training and coaching sessions by narrative and storytelling experts. And in this, they would be able to learn about storytelling and begin to craft a narrative and the story itself. And again, this would all be done in partnership with both the organization that applies and is selected, but also the storyteller themselves, and the storyteller, again, being someone with lived experience of housing insecurity. And after going through these sessions and having this kind of learning process, they'll be then matched with a local videographer who can really bring this vision to life. And so the videographer would be shooting, editing, and producing the videos, again, in partnership with the organization and the storyteller. And we really wanted to make this as accessible as possible. And so it will be completely free to organizations, and will also be compensating the storytellers who participate. And yeah, now I just want to share a few key details. Make sure that you all are ready to apply if this is something that sounds like your organization would be interested in. So be sure to save the date for April 8th. That's when the application opens, and it'll be open for 2 weeks until April 22nd. And you can see the URL down below. You can also go there, or to sign up to receive an email when the application goes live. Or another way will be that Shift the Bay will also be sending out an email once the application is open. So make sure that you're on their email list as well. So there'll be a few ways to be notified, but just want to make sure that folks are aware so that they can apply. And the specific dates of the workshops and the trainings will be listed on the application once it's open. But just to give you all an idea, the program will run May through July. So in May and early June will be the workshop series. And then in later June and July will be the video production. And as for eligibility, this is open to Bay Area nonprofits doing housing justice work. Again, it doesn't have to be the organization's primary focus, as long as there's some housing justice work happening. And it's really intended for organizations that really could use this kind of support to produce videos and do this deeper storytelling work. They wouldn't be able to necessarily do it on their own, or hire a videographer to do it, and also, you know, have enough capacity to staff the process and see it through, as well as have a storyteller or storytellers in mind that could be brought into the program. And if you aren't sure if this is you, if you should apply, we really suggest that you just go ahead and do it. We want to be flexible and work with folks. And again, I do recognize that it is a smaller cohort. We're choosing 4 to 6 organizations, but this is just the first time we're doing it. We're super excited about it. And we're hoping to continue to do this again in the future and grow this program out. So if you don't get to do it this time, you know, there will likely be another time to do it as well. And again, the link on this slide will take you to a webpage that has a lot of more information, as well as that form I mentioned to sign up to get notified about the application opening. And that's about it. I'm not sure if we have time for questions. I think Madison will tell me.
I do not think we have time for questions.
No worries.
Feel free to pop them in the chat, and we're happy to get in touch with you. Also, that brings me to my next point. We have a feedback form. So definitely, if there's any questions about this, please fill that out. Landre will be getting that in the chat right now, and I will just speed round us through our last little bit of reminders and action items to help stay engaged with Begins with Home and help us build momentum. So yes, get in touch with us about your story making ideas that you talked about today, any other briefing requests. There should be a link for Calendly for Corey, so we can chat with you. Do try out that storytelling cheat sheet we started the call off with in the playbook, and put that into your own work. You can keep a lookout to amplify stories and digital actions as they go live on our website. Of course, all of that will be amplified on our social media platforms. So choose your fighter, we're on all of them. And then, yes, apply to join our storytelling cohort by the 22nd of next month. And then, yes, finally, hopefully you all are aware, but May is Affordable Housing Month, and we're excited to share more about this soon. But for now, here are just some breadcrumbs to keep you hungry for more. Our theme is Our Future Begins with Home. So really leading with that like future-oriented, visionary vibe. We are also moving Affordable Housing Month out through new spaces and audiences, including arts and culture partnerships. So we're building those out currently, but that is going to include sports venues, movie theaters, libraries, and more. So we're really excited for this, and we'll keep you posted. And then, yes, keep an eye out for a comprehensive toolkit where you can help amplify our theme and the stories that we create during that month. And I'll just leave you with this quote to remember that hope will never be silent. And we're very excited to make hope very, very loud with you all and make Mr. Harvey Milk very proud. And you'll get an email with all the resources from today, including the links coming through the chat. And I'll put email contacts on the screen in just a moment. And yeah, look forward to seeing you all soon at our next briefing and continuing to explore collaboration through Begins with Home together. So thanks, y'all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.